Welcome to the next session, which is going to be conducted by none other than Mr. Naavi himself. The topic is going to be on emergence of neuro rights. I'm confident. I don't think Mr. Naavi needs any more introduction, and hence I request him to, Sir, Mr. Naavi, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So we started the first day with the discussion on neuro rights by Mr. Yuste, who is actually the person who is driving this globally. So I started working on this neuro rights about a year back and tried to collect whatever information and other things are available. And that is yet to be discussed in professional circles in a big way. And this is perhaps one of the opportunities for us to discuss about the need for neuro rights, particularly because we are now rewriting the privacy rights related law. And this is a time when we can slip in the neuro rights as an extension of privacy rights. If some of you will remember, the JPC2 amendment to Personal Data Protection Bill contained something to say in the definition of harms. It added one additional harm called psychological impairment of the data principal's autonomy is considered as a harm. So the psychological impact of mishandling of personal information is already something which is in the radar of the government of India in the PDPB, and it may continue in the coming new version also. But whether neuro rights is there or not, we do not know. And it is a new concept. Probably it is something which we have to consider now. Otherwise, it will not be there. We have to wait for another future day. I look at neuro rights as a part of the human rights aspect, as a defense against brain hacking. See, computer hacking, we created a defense by having the Information Technology Act. Now a time has come to create a defense against brain hacking. And what I'm going to do today is only to give some introduction so that all of us get some idea about the need for this new law called Neuro Rights Law. So I will briefly talk about the similarity of brain functions to a computer function, developments in neurotechnology as is happening now, inadequacy of the privacy rights protection, how it will get impacted because of the neurotechnology, and the types of neuro rights which the global community is discussing, and what should be the plan of action for all of us. Now, if you look at the human brain, it is very much analogous to a computer. In fact, some of the latest developments indicate that there is a relationship of the brain function to what principles we look at in quantum computing. In quantum computing, we have something called superpositioning and entanglement. It appears that some of the neurons also could exhibit similar properties. That is one of the latest research which is coming up. Now, otherwise, brain generates, stores, transmits, and receives neurodata. Now, neurodata consists of electromagnetic pulses. So, when an electrical potential builds up in a neuron, once it crosses a particular threshold value, the neuron transmits a signal to the next neuron. So the moment that threshold is crossed, there is a pulse of a signal which moves to the other neuron. It is very much similar to the system of binary, where there is a 0 and 1 concept. And you can say that if there is a pulse, the value is 1. If there is no pulse, you can say value is 0. That way, the brain's sending of messages is like sending of binary data from one neuron to next neuron, from that neuron to next neuron, and so on. That is the similarity which we have between the computer technology and the human brain technology. And within the human body, the brain and the spinal cord form the central nervous system where decisions are taken. And the nerves actually are like network cables which take them to the different body parts. And at the end of the nerve, there is a mechanism which can pick up signals from there and bring it back. And there is space in the brain for storage of memory. And there are different spaces for different memory, like we have our folders, C drive, D drive kind of thing. And the interpretation of data is through the sensory organizations, which may use different electrochemical or optical kind of technology. Like seeing perhaps may use photoelectric property. When light falls on a particular cell, it may emit some signals which go back to the brain and say, oh, there is a light here. Similarly, when sound comes to the ear sends some information. So that is how it is perceived. So we have this human brain, which is a very interesting, say, contraception created by God, which we are trying to actually replicate in the computer scenario. And the research which we are doing on AI is actually to bring some cognitive functions of the brain into the computer world. We are far behind the brain anyway. So this release of electromagnetic pulses from the brain can be triggered externally by sending some, say, electric pulse or something like that, which may change the voltage potential which is built up in neuron. It can also be perhaps changed by changing the chemical composition. That is how hormones create some kind of internal signals and other things. So brain hacking can come because electrical signals from outside can change the neuron functions. And at present also, we can pick out the signals from inside. Now, when you say electromagnetic waves, we know that this brain actually keeps on emitting electromagnetic waves in different frequencies. Perhaps when a person is sleeping, where there is a low frequency, high amplitude wave being emitted, then as he moves from deep sleep to light sleep and relax, this is how your watch or something measures your sleep kind of a thing by looking at these electromagnetic signals perhaps. Then when a person comes into the normal waking state or he is in active mode, then the frequency of the signals increase. So there is a kind of a wave which is emitted out of the brain, which has different frequencies. Today we are talking of spectrum. Now here there is a particular spectrum, which is of course in a very low spectrum area, but weak signals are coming out. We are talking of 5G and other things which are in a slightly higher, say, frequency range. We also are aware that external input into the brain in terms of sound or energy or something like that could create some changes in the functioning of the physiology of the person. For example, we have heard of music therapy. We have heard of guided meditation, which can actually reduce stress, anxiety, improved memory, etc. There are also observations of what we call as brainwave entrainment. That is like something like an induced effect. Like when electricity is passed through one this thing, you have got an induced current somewhere else. So likewise, so by sending some kind of say electromagnetic waves bombarding the skull with that, even from outside, there can be an induced effect inside. In the music, already commercial exploitation is there, something called binaural beats, where when you use a stereo sound, there is a difference in frequency introduced between the two ears, and that is supposed to create a very soothing effect, which can induce sleep or something like that. Now, most of these things which are open in the discussion are those which are beneficial to the humanity, and they are supposed to induce enhanced focus, some relaxation, sleep, etc. But at the same time, we are also aware that there could be certain negative impact of external waves on the brain. In fact, the use of mobile itself is an example that a continued use of mobile, keeping it near the ear, has an effect on the brain. There is no doubt about it. Maybe the technology of say mobiles have improved now and the emission strength is reduced, but definitely there is an effect. So similarly, excessive microwave exposure is reported to cause some trauma. In fact, countries like Japan, I think, have totally eliminated the microwave ovens itself. So the damaging effect of microwave radiation is also well recorded for as something which can create dysfunction and structural damage. So microwaves and an extension of that, sound waves. Sound waves also can change the thought pattern. In fact, there is an interesting patent claim which says that the person, the inventor, has discovered that a pulsed signal on a radio frequency carrier of a particular frequency is effective in creating intelligible signals inside the head of a person if the electromagnetic energy is projected through air to the head of the person, which means that we can change the thought process of a person by this wave which is in the air. This so-called spectrum management, which the government has now licensed to various people, it can perhaps be used to influence people. In fact, this kind of a thing is supposed to be carried on or being carried on now in many military research projects, basically in USA. But at least 2 persons in Bangalore have contacted me, and they are complaining that in India also this kind of a research is happening. I am actually seeing that an ill effect of this. I may not believe what is happening in India, but worldwide there is a sort of a research going on that from the satellite, sound waves which are there in the atmosphere is used to create some say designed or targeted thought waves in the minds of the people. You can imagine how dangerous it could be. Now, scientists have created various devices. In fact, something like this, Rafael also spoke on the other day. There are devices which are external, say, sensory devices which can be worn like a helmet. In fact, some head massaging kind of contraptions are available on Amazon itself. But what you see here is a more complicated medical thing which can pick weaker signals, because the brain waves which have to come out of the skull may be weak. So capturing that can be done through a device like this. Similarly, there could be chips inserted inside the brain through surgical intervention, which is done for patients who have epilepsy, this Alzheimer's disease, and so on. So both these are present today in the medical world. But what the medical science says could be that only the beneficial use of it. But what we have to think is that everybody in the world is not good. There could also be misuse of this. In fact, if you look at the technology of human brain, we can see that this induced hallucinations can be created by our brain being impacted, what I called as hacking, through external devices. Now, if the devices like what is seen here are used for picking the signals, it means that it can also be used for pushing the signals into the brain. So both are possible. It's a two-way thing. Therefore, thoughts can be converted into computer instructions, and computer instructions can be converted into thoughts. And this is not fiction. It is something which is happening even today. You might have seen that in many movies and other things. of course, normally scientific fiction movies are the early indicators of what will come. And in the case of neurotechnology, we are already in a position where experiments against monkeys, experiments against mice have been already done, where the monkey can, by just looking at the computer screen, can play a game there. So thought process gets transferred because of the chip which is put inside this thing, which is having some wireless connection to the computer kind of a thing. So these have been established as happening, and the persons who are behind such research, two important persons whom you have to remember. One is Elon Musk, another is our Zuckerberg, Meta. So both these individuals who are known to capture any business technology which is of the future are in this neurotechnology, brain computer interface kind of technology, and they are doing some research. I am sure that sooner or later they will come up with some good success. And the success here means that externally they can input thoughts to human brain or pick out something from your human brain. And they can create hallucinations are also known to us. In fact, even today, say, for example, hypnotism is a known kind of technology where external, say, suggestions given to a data subject actually make people behave differently. Even physiological changes can be made in hypnotism. I don't know how many of you are aware. By a proper hypnotic suggestion, you can make a subject not see something which he is supposed to be seeing. He may not be feeling the heat and other things. In fact, surgeries are conducted merely by hypnotic anesthesia. I have particularly seen demonstrations of the body being made rigid like a steel because of hypnotic suggestions. The smell kind of power increased several times to the levels which we are today only associated with the dogs and other things. So changes in the physiological things in a human body through hypnotic suggestions are very, very old. In fact, I first saw these demonstrations way back in 1970s. And since then, this subject has been of interest to me in the hypnotism kind of area. Now, it appears that hypnotism was a psychological kind of an activity, not using any technology. Today, we have the support of the technology. Now, in criminology, we have been using this truth serum and other things. Basically, something is injected into the brain, to the bloodstream, and that changes the inhibitions of the person. So in the brain, there is one part which holds that what we can call as discretion. So we don't want to say something which we don't want to say. Thoughts are going on in our mind. Sometimes we don't express it because it is not diplomatic to say so. And we know that such inhibitions will fall when you are in a drunken state and other things. So this truth serum and other things are used in such a manner that the chemical composition within the body is changed, and that makes certain that zone which controls the inhibitions active or something like that. I think that is the philosophy or the technology behind that chemical process which changes a person's ability to provide to speak truth. So that is already again available. Now we are coming to a use of neurotechnology, which is far more say invasive. Now, one thing we have to remember is all good intentions can be misused. If you look at criminals, criminals do not have any qualms. So therefore, they will do anything to make use of whatever they find. Technological innovation continues independent of the ill effects. You talk to a technologist, he will say, I am innovating and it is your problem to bring law, your problem to secure yourself. I will do what I want to do. This is the approach of most of the technology. So we cannot expect the technology to easily fall into a regulatory regime or to exercise self-discipline, because some of them do not know the difference between disruption and destruction. We want to create disruption, and that is what startups do, and that's what innovation is supposed to do. But disruption can become destruction. In fact, this is the reason why I have been telling that when making a feasibility analysis of a startup project, you have to also take into account the social impact analysis. For example, you take the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency has always been held by me as something which is going to destroy the economy of any country or the globe. But despite that, technology people are pushing cryptocurrency to the extent that a lot of individuals, innocent people, invest in cryptocurrency. And if there is a failure like FTX, they will all be wringing their hands. That is because technology people don't look at the impact on the society. But we, you can say we are the governance people, we have to look at technology and the effect on the society and try to ensure that there is some kind of a control. This is what sometimes I have been referring to as technologies using the Bhasmasura syndrome. Of course, international people will understand more when we say creating a Frankenstein. In India, of course, we can use this Bhasmasura as the kind of example to say that if you start creating technology without control, even noble neuroscience intentions could become a destructive force. We have seen rogue robots, rogue drones. They are as dangerous and destructive as bioweapons or nuclear weapons, and we need to actually regulate this through regulation of the neurotechnology. In the AI, we have already spoken about ethical stoppers. I think today somebody was talking about it. I think Mr. Dr. Srinivas was talking about it. It is considered essential for AI development, and neurotechnology development also needs a similar regulatory framework. We should do it before it is too late. We have been late as far as the AI is concerned. AI has not been properly regulated, and therefore we may be in a situation where misuse of AI is a fact of life today. And we should not allow neurotechnology to go in the same way. And therefore, we have to actually start acting early. Legal mandate for preventing the algorithmic bias is already part of many data protection laws. And we hope that neuro regulations will begin at least now, even before it becomes a problem. People may say this is only in the future, why we should curb the technology today. It is not a question of curbing the technology. We have to perhaps make technologists realize that whatever they create, if they want to be a Brahma, they have to create people who do not destroy the world. Otherwise, you have to bring in Shiva to destroy. Otherwise, we need to have a Vishnu to take incarnations to kill people, demons one by one. So knowing all these things, it is a time for us to work for prescription of regulations and mandatory laws as early as possible. Without neuro right regulations, in fact, all our discussions on the concept of privacy is under threat, because privacy today we consider is something of a right to express one's choice about personal information, how it should be collected, used, etc. So right of choice is the foundation of right to privacy. But what neurotechnology is doing is, it is changing that right to choice itself by changing your choice. In fact, I think we discussed at length in Dr. Srinivas' lecture about what we otherwise call as dark patterns, which are already in use by various technology people. What we mean by dark patterns is using the design elements and other aspects of e-commerce activity in such a manner that you try to induce the person to do what he did not want to do. So whether by over a period of time cultivating some advertisements and other things in a particular manner or otherwise, the use of this you can say motivated behavioral modification is already available now. That is what we call as deceptive designing or dark patterns. Now, those cases, externally some inputs are given, and because of which people try to behave differently. And this Cambridge Analytica was also perhaps kind of a thing. This is something which happens in all advertising industry. In fact, we have heard of the Blue Whale game, and we know that today ransomware people use a ticking reverse counting clock in the email which they send, saying that if they say 24 hours time we are giving you for payment of ransom, this clock will keep on ticking 24 hours, 23 hours, 21 hours, kind of a thing, so that the anxiety of the person keeps on increasing. This is how people are misusing behavioral science to commit crimes. If they are doing this without a neuro invasion possible, now when they have got the ability to get into the mind of a person, obviously they will devise various apps, various devices, then waves coming from the air to take control of people. And that is the danger which we are in today. That is why we need to have protection against neuro data manipulation. Now, privacy laws protect personal data. Now, neuro data manipulation, because it affects the choice, we need to look at some ways of regulating that. Now, whether it can be done in the privacy law itself is a question. In fact, this is what I have also proposed in the shape of things to come, by saying that we will declare that neuro privacy is one of the privacy rights which India would like to protect, and then we'll define what is a neuro data, and then we'll prescribe a heightened sense of exercising the right of choice. Then the consent mechanism and other things can also be used here, but here we may require the heightened level of consent, which I have called as witnessed consent or something like that. So the existing laws can be effectively used to protect the neuro rights. And that is why I called something as neuro privacy as the fourth category of privacy, apart from physical privacy, mental privacy, and information privacy. Internationally, in fact, what Mr. Rafael was telling, they refer to this neuro privacy as mental privacy, but I have tried to make a distinction. The kind of privacy which correcting kind of judgments, those of you who know about law, okay, that was physical privacy. But what subsequent Supreme Court judgments spoke about was a kind of privacy which is a state of mind. I call that as mental privacy. And what Puttaswamy judgment spoke of is information privacy. Now, neuro privacy has not been discussed in any of these things, and we need to add it as a separate aspect. Now, Chile, as you know, is the first country in the world to legislate on neuro rights. And Rafael was perhaps the person behind that. And what they did was, in the constitution, they added a clause saying scientific and technological research shall be at the service of the people and shall maintain respect for life and physical and psychological integrity. So they said right in the constitution that the scientific and technological research should be at the service of the people. This kind of a thing, I don't think we have in our constitution. Our constitution experts can see. Then it says the law shall regulate the requirements, conditions, restrictions for scientific and technological use in people, and shall especially safeguard the brain activity as well as information derived from it. This is the law which Chile has passed, and this is supposed to protect the physical and psychological integrity at the neuro level. Now, so this approach provides the legal framework, recognizes mental identity, and it also addresses ability to increase or decrease the brain functions, and it prohibits compelling individuals to give neural data. It prohibits the buying and selling of neural data, while donating may still be permitted. Under these circumstances, Chile law recognized 5 kinds of neuro rights, which we'll briefly talk about later. It is personal identity, free will, mental privacy. I told you this concept of mental privacy is used here differently. Protection against biases and equal access. These are the 5 rights recommended by the Neuro Rights Foundation in the Chile law. Briefly talking about these rights, when we say personal right, this is the right to ensure that the sense of self of a person is tampered with. So the question of who am I should be, which is normally a memory recall function, should not be disturbed. Some of you are aware of this Born Identity series kind of a thing, where that's a movie in which this has been used. Now, in the legacy system, we look at personal identity as the name, lineage, location, etc. And psychologically, what sort of a person one is, what are his beliefs and values, etc. This is the kind of profiling which we do. And all this together may be personal identity. So we may have to, in a good neuro rights law, give a definition for what is personal identity, which is preserved or protected under the neuro rights law. Of course, this could raise many philosophical questions in the Indian philosophy of who am I? Is it the body or the mind? Is it the consciousness? Is it the Atman? These are all very interesting things which will require further deliberation. That is, personal identity has to be preserved is one right. Second is free will to be preserved. Refers to preserving the people's ability to make decisions freely and autonomously without manipulation by neurotechnologies. Now, it's possible to, whether it is possible to measure these things is a question mark. In physics, we have got a principle called Heisenberg principle of uncertainty, which says that you cannot measure the position of an electron and the velocity of the electron simultaneously. If you try to measure its velocity, position will change. If you measure position, velocity will change, is a concept. Likewise, we say light is both a particle as well as a wave. These are all principles of uncertainty which remain in science. So similarly, whether you can get a person's free will, or when you are trying to get the free will, are you changing his free will? These are things which we need to debate. Now, neuro rights at least will have to say that free will not be affected by inputting or pricking out neuro signals or neuro data. That is what can be done. Now, behavioral privacy, which is a record of the behavioral pattern of the individual, is an external observation of the activity of the brain. When we say profiling, we profile from outside, but the origin of the behavior is from inside the brain. What neuro rights law will have to address is that internally getting to know about the behavior. Like somebody was telling today that whether a person will be a criminal or not, we can find out. Yes, it is possible. And the access to the brain activity should not be permitted in law except in whatever way the law provides. That can also create bias. So protection against bias is required. This is an extension of the automated decision making. Another important thing which the neuro rights have to do is that if this technology can be used to enhance the brain function, that should not be the preserve of only a few people. There should be equal right for people to access even enhancement technologies. They will be all have to be protected against diminishing technologies, but all should have access for the improvement of the brain functions. So future of neurotechnology, there is also another possibility that currently the thoughts are all based on the construction which we call as neuron doctrine, where we say one single neuron is the focus and that does some activities. But the upcoming research talks about multi-neuron doctrine, and it may say that when more than one neurons work together, that has its own functional expressions, and therefore tomorrow's neurotechnologies will look at those possibilities. That is where this quantum computing aspects may come up. But ultimately, the possibility that we will be having cyborgs is a very, very important or very much a reality. Now, whether these 5 neuro rights are sufficient or we need to have more, these things need to be explored. And I personally feel that we should look at a separate neuro rights conference, which FDPPI would like to organize sometime next year. In fact, neuro rights will have to be considered as one part of the extended activity of FDPPI, because there is no privacy right without a neuro rights protection. If it is not relevant today, it will become relevant in a few days from now or a few years from now. So as is our practice, we have to be ahead of the time. So I think FDPPI should start looking at creating a division which will be looking at the neuro rights issues. And this journey will continue. Please keep visiting neurorights.in, where I'm trying to pump in whatever information is possible. I am also trying to create a Android application which gives direct link to this neurorights.in. As soon as it is approved by the Google Play Store, perhaps I would be sharing that data. So thank you, friends. If there are any questions, I will be happy to receive it.
Naavi, sir.
Yeah.
Only one thing I really, as usual, no words, sir, no words. Thank you very much, really. And I understand that it's going to be one more feather in the cap of yours as well as FDPPI going forward. And I'm sure with your kind of commitment and the push, maybe India could be the second country next to Chile to have these rights, in my opinion. So great, sir. I will ask you probably after this session is over, that from where you get time, whether God has given more than 24 hours to you, I really don't know. Yeah, so nice. Sir, one quick question from Mr. Govind Srinivasan. Do you think that the government will realize the imperative of including the potential harms of neurotechnology in the upcoming data protection bill, or will it need the strong push from FDPPI and other organizations to sensitize the government to include it in the bill?
See, it is my wish list that it will be considered, but I am also practical. It is not easy to get into this particular law. But of course, we can keep suggesting that even between now and the next 2 months, and hopefully we need to have this push. There is no doubt about it. That's why I'm trying to get together the people with like-minded people and try to work on this.
Okay. Excellent, sir. Excellent. The first day, our inaugural session, where Professor had given his update and the continuation of yours, really a great session. Thank you very much, sir. Once again.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And you need to be there again for this session. I'm really sorry.
In the background, as when you
you please carry on the last 10-15 minutes. I definitely would like to be there for the data protection compliance management system discussion, right?
Okay.